You know that feeling when you're trying your best, and yet everything just seems to go wrong? It's not just a bad day. It's a feeling of being invisible, of being pushed further and further into the shadows. We've all felt that sting. But what happens when that invisibility turns into resentment? Today, let's talk about the Joker, specifically the 2019 version of Arthur Fleck. On the surface, he's a victim of a broken system. But what if I told you he's actually a walking case study in narcissistic injury? Hold up for a second, because the dark truth is, it's not just a movie character. It's a behavioral pattern, and it's happening in the real world. Let's break down the psychology of his descent. Now here's where it gets interesting. When we think of narcissism, we usually imagine the loud, arrogant person in the room. But narcissistic injury is something else entirely. It's the internal collapse that happens when someone whose identity relies on external validation, being seen, being liked, being important, is suddenly told, "You are nothing." Arthur Fleck built his reality on a foundation of wanting to be a comedian, to be loved. When that foundation crumbled, he didn't just get sad, he got dangerous. Psychologists call this narcissistic rage response. When you feel powerless for too long, the brain's default mode network, the part responsible for self-reflection, starts to loop. It stops analyzing why things go wrong and starts plotting how to regain power. For Arthur, this wasn't just a mood swing. It was not just between personalities, but between his internal fantasy and the external reality he couldn't cope with anymore. The problem is, our brains don't always distinguish between a real rejection and a perceived one. When you feel constantly ignored, your brain starts building defense mechanisms that look a lot like his. Doesn't that sound familiar to you? You might not be a supervillain, but think about it. How many times have you held on to a grudge because someone didn't acknowledge your effort? That urge to lash out, to act differently just to prove them wrong, that's the same mechanism. It's not just a quirk. It's a defense mechanism, a way for your brain to say, "I am still in control, even if the world says I'm not." But here's the thing, that control is an illusion. The more you feed into that us versus them mentality, the more you isolate yourself from the real you. So, what's your take? Can we break this pattern? If any of this is resonating with you, please know you're not alone. Here's a 3-step action plan to keep that narcissistic injury in check. Identify the trigger. Next time you feel that sting of rejection, pause. Ask yourself, is this an actual threat, or is it just my ego needing validation? Detach from the fantasy. Arthur loved the idea of being a comedian more than the work itself. Focus on your actions, not the external result. Find real connection. Stop seeking validation from people who can't provide it. Connect with people who value the real you, not the persona. But hold up, before I dive into the next character, I want to hear from you. Who is a villain or character that you think needs a breakdown next? Let me know in the comments. Hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss what we break down next. Thanks for watching.